next month is a very important one for the global ship recycling industry, but it also has a big impact from cradle to grave of ships because it's entry into force of the so-called Hong Kong International Convention for safe and environmentally sound recycling of ships. And the background is that nearly anything what we are doing today will become waste one day. And the core aspect is, how do we manage it? How do we take care of it? And that has been all developed in the Hong Kong Convention, which was adopted in 2009 by IMO. And Europe started to have a test case or a training phase back in 2013, which became effective in 2020 by implementing more or less the same requirements for the shipping industry and ship recycling industry. So both of these regulations or the convention apply to all merchant ships above 500 gross tons and all ship recycling facilities managing those or taking those ships apart, scrapping, dismantling, recycling, however you want to call it. And the key requirement for the shipping industry, including manufacturers, suppliers, new building yards, and of course the ship owners, is the inventory of hazardous materials. And ship recyclers have to prove that they can handle such ships properly. So, having a look into the more shipping-related aspect, the IHM, we have three different parts, but when I talk about it, the focus is on IHM Part 1, because that goes from cradle to grave, from the building and operational phase to the very end, to the last voyage. And they are applying different hazardous materials or tables listing hazardous substances. So that's the core focus. Table A, these are banned substances like asbestos, PCBs, organotin or TBT from the Anti-Fouling Convention and others. And Table D, it's a list of excluded items, household-like items. Table C, again, these are potentially hazardous items, but they're used like additives, like lubricating oil, stuff like that. So it's extremely important to really understand what is the true scope of the IHM Part 1 and what has to be documented prior or during the last voyage, because the IHM does not only have to be certified, it also has to be maintained, and that's a huge operational impact. So, responsibility for new builds lies with the shipyard. And they have to develop the inventory of hazardous materials based on documents from the suppliers of relevant items, which they are installing in the new build during the construction phase. So, in contrast to that, for the development of the IHM for existing ships, it has to be done primarily based on sampling and inspection by so-called hazmat experts or IHM experts. But the maintenance, like in the new building phase, has to be done on hand of documents again from the suppliers. Two completely different approaches. And this is what needs to be understood. And the owner, of course, is also responsible to have it certified, maintained, and recertified every 5 years. And it will be subject to port state control inspections as well. The core task for the suppliers of the new building yard and also for ships in operation is to provide the material declarations for relevant products. So, and altogether we talk about 16 different hazardous substances which have to be investigated in the supply chains. It's a huge task for the suppliers. It's not to be underestimated. First, he has to provide a supplier's declaration of conformity, clarifying under which legal scheme they are preparing material declarations for specific products. And it's a supplier, and even a manufacturer has its own supply chain, and they don't know what is in there, what is not in there, which means they have to request similar data from their supply chain. So one request from a shipyard or from a ship owner during IHM maintenance can cause significant efforts for the supply chain. So it is a very crucial aspect, but what we also need to understand, the documents have to be valid as long as the product exists on board. And these can be decades. That's a responsibility and liability for the supplier who issued the document. So this is a chain of information, but also a chain of liability that really needs to be understood. So IHM maintenance itself is tracking of the changes on board, and that's also a keyword, the change. When I take out a component and put a similar component or spare part whatsoever back in, I'm not changing the situation. If I modernize a component, if I take one ballast water treatment system out and replace it with a different model, then that's a change. But not if I put in the similar treatment system. So it's extremely important. The IHM itself is also valid as long as the ship exists. And what we need to understand is by knowing where the hazardous materials are, we can take care of the crew. We can give them advice on what to do, what not to do, prepare SOPs. It's like what we know from the MSDS already, but MSDS is more like for chemicals, painting or coatings and stuff like that. It's not for the component itself. Now we know, do we have cadmium inside? Do we have mercury, other stuff? So it's like an extension. So we need to understand as ship owners, but also anyone who's involved in ship maintenance, repair and building ships, that this really adds value. So it's of course also a compliance topic. The maintenance has been done so badly in the industry that ICS and the Industry Working Group on Ship Recycling decided together with ISA, we have to give clear guidance to suppliers and ship owners to really focus on what is really required. And even service suppliers did a very bad job by requesting documents from suppliers for a multitude of order items, which was not necessary at all. So they were flooding suppliers with their document requests and insisting to get them and force them to just sign a form for which they are liable for 10, 20, 30 years. If it is done correctly and if the order items are properly reviewed for the new building stage and operational phase, then we can have a targeted approach and we can focus on the true task. We review 100% of all order items, and on average it's around 4.7. I just reviewed our numbers last week. Now we are at 4.46% of all order items found to be relevant for the IHM maintenance. Comparing it to others who send it out for 50, 60, sometimes even 80% of all order items, including a broom which is ordered, just shows how significant and how important this aspect is. So with this targeted approach, we approach the suppliers. We get 99% of the material declarations back as what we call zero declarations, saying there is no hazardous substance contained. And only for 1%, so 1% of less than 5%, this is what we need to follow up on board. That's a marginal task, but that requires a good first step, and that's like categorizing the order items. That's a crucial part, otherwise costs and efforts explode. And this guidance from the industry is really worth to read, to spend a little bit of time and to digest this, because this is, let's say, the common sense of IHM maintenance. That was the shipping side. The other side is the recycling facilities. We are having much more in mind the ship operations, shipbuilding and so on, and also of course crewing. But what is happening at the other end? And that's not a common activity, but it will become much more common in the very near future because lots of ships have to go for recycling. Ship recyclers have to develop a ship recycling facility plan. That's the overall manual and management system of whatever they do. Prior to receiving ships, how they prepare them, what checks to be done, what documents and checklists to be carried out, and till the very end, where have the wastes been sent to? How are they treated? What incidents, accidents happened? So the whole lot also has to be somehow reflected in the layout. The layout has to allow safe and environmentally sound recycling of ships. So it is a very compact aspect, and only when they can prove compliance, they get the DASRE, the Document of Authorization to Conduct Ship Recycling. 26th of June next month marks the date when many dozens of ship recycling facilities have to stop working because they are not prepared, they have not done their homework in time, and they are not having the DASRE. With entry into force, and all major ship recycling countries have ratified the Hong Kong Convention, at this stage there will not be a single recycling yard in Pakistan. There will be 7 yards out of 45 yards in Bangladesh, and around 90 out of 130 yards in India. All the others have not received the DASRE or are not certified as per HKC. We are going to see a huge wave of ships go into recycling, but with a heavily reduced recycling capacity. I'm not going into that. I prepared a study about the legal basics for ship owners when they send ships for recycling. And to be honest, with the overlapping between Hong Kong Convention and waste legislation called the Basel Convention and Basel Ban Amendment, it's a true nightmare for decision makers. They really have to look into 2 huge conventions and figure a way out on how to stay legally safe when they take a decision to send a ship for recycling. So with this we could spend another 2 hours. I'm saving your time. It's just about capacities. The gray is the BIMCO prediction. What we have seen is much less recycling activity than what was predicted. We will see a very sharp increase, and the red circle is EU capacity. It's marginal. It's, to be honest, not really sufficient. We have to go to Asia, to the existing yards. There are many new yards in the planning with truly substantial capacity. We are involved in one planning for 1 yard having a capacity of 2 million tons per year, 12 post-Panamax vessels under recycling in parallel. These are coming up. This will come up in early 27. So the industry, or the recycling industry, is preparing as well. What we see in general, substandards prevail. Confusion, misinformation is very common. Applying common sense when decisions are taken in regards to IHM services, but also ship recycling, is not always there. Capacity will become a major issue. It is a complex issue. It has to have sufficient knowledge. Good knowledge is a key to develop efficient and working solutions. And fleet planning has to include the recycling planning as well. So, thank you very much.